God's grace, His mercy, and His peace are yours in Jesus Christ, our Savior. Happy Mother's Day again. Hope it's a great and wonderful celebration, great blessing. So Psalm 23 is what we're looking at today. It's always tricky when you pick something that everybody knows. It's one thing for me to take a challenging parable or a passage and then unpack it for you, and you go, oh, tremendous insight, Pastor James. It's another thing. It's like the hardest two Sundays, or not Sundays necessarily, but the two hardest days to preach. They're the easiest and the hardest, Christmas and Easter. They're easy because the story tells itself. They're hard because everybody thinks they know everything about the story already because they've heard it 100 times. So Psalm 23 is one of those challenging things. Let me tell you what a treasure it is. The reason is such a treasure, it's interesting. It's a classic, right? Things become a classic for a reason. People repeat them. They find comfort in them. They repeat them. But Psalm 23, so I've been in ministry, it's not, yeah, it will be. It'll be 30 years this June. So 30 years I've been being a pastor, and I've been at the bedside of people in the hospital and at home and in hospice more times than I can remember. And many times you've been visiting folks in that journey, and it can be a difficult road, that kind of thing. And then there's times when people say, it looks like it's close. And you come up. And sometimes you get to still, people will rally and you'll get a chance to visit and chat. Other times maybe you're fading into a different spot of consciousness. And I often like to tell families, it looks like mom or dad has got one foot here on earth and one foot's in heaven, you know. I believe that. I'm not kidding when I say that. I'm not making that up. But it is very interesting when I'll come in and people say, well, mom hasn't been responding for a few hours. And I'll say, well, let's just pray. You know what happens when you say the 23rd Psalm? They start saying it with you. I mean, many, not always, many times. So there are certain things. Psalm 23 is one of those. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And you watch people's lips move. What we just did, the Apostles' Creed, those are things that start to get embedded in your DNA. Those things that we hang on to. I am the resurrection and the life. There's certain passages that we read or a song that we sing, and you will just watch people do that. So I wanted to not be so familiar, these words, that you kind of tune me out. I want to hopefully bring something to you in this way. Let me describe it this way. So it's baseball season, and I'm a Met fan growing up in New York City, and they have kind of been in the zone. Do you know what I mean when I say that? Kind of been in the zone. I played basketball in high school, and I had a buddy. He'd get in the zone, could not miss. Just could not miss. I've been with golfers they will just get in this spot where they're not even thinking about it, and it just goes. I'm never there, by the way. I'm never there. And they get in the zone. Let me tell you what my goal today is this. This is the kind of words where the things come together and it's just right. It's just right. I want Psalm 23 to be that. I want that to be that for you. The voice of your shepherd speaking to you. There's a story about he was a famous voice actor, but he also did show movies and so forth. Charles Lawton, and that's an old name. But Charles Lawton had this resonant, wonderful voice. And they were in a gathering of some Christian people, and they had asked him to come and say, pick a favorite passage of yours to read. And he came as a guest, and they said, would you read Psalm 23 for us? And he was just such a professional. He had this beautiful, beautiful professional voice. And so he read it. And people were just, wow, that is just so amazing. It was so elevated and beautiful job. And then other members there had other portions of scripture or a Christian poem or something that they read. And then they got to a very elderly little grandma, and she said, well, I picked Psalm 23 also. Is it okay if I read it? And of course they said, of course. And they all thought, because her voice was thin, she was old. And yet the whole room hushed, and she recited Psalm 23 from memory. and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And when people went to Charles Lawton after the thing, they said to him, and they said, what was that like? You read it, and then little grandma read it, and people's reactions were amazing. And he said, I know the psalm. She knew her shepherd. And that's what I want this to be. I want you to hear the voice of your shepherd. And that'll put us in the zone where everything Jesus says is going to comfort you. Everything he says and everything he does. So, I tell people this, it's funny. I've preached thousands of sermons now. You know where I don't like to preach? Away from home. I like preaching here. When I go away and I preach somewhere else, I don't know them. It's hard. Now, is the human condition, I can give you a theological thing. I can explain the text. But I know you. You're my family. And so it's like that too. David is the one writing this, isn't he? And what's interesting, he's both a sheep and a shepherd. I'll point that out to you in here. David is a key figure in this because he's the author of this. But he plays the role of sheep, wayward sheep, and also the shepherd who protects and who cares. So it's a powerful thing that as David writes these words. And so it's knowing the voice of your shepherd, knowing your shepherd. So let's do this. So there's three points in here. This is a song of complete grace. Psalms, were the hymnal of the Old Testament, the songbook of the Old Testament. Wouldn't that be the greatest find ever if we actually knew how they sang them? Wouldn't that be just amazing? And we don't know. We just don't know. So we set them to music and do things, but it's a song of complete grace. Now, I want to make a quick statement here because the dudes in the room, I want you to hear this from me. Because I talk about sheep, because if we want to talk about sheep and shepherds, sheep are no great champions of intelligence. And, and I don't know, especially the guys in the room, if we're really excited about being lumped in with those guys. And we're Americans after all, and I'm an independent person, and I manage for myself, and I'm just fine, thank you very much. I'm talking especially spiritually, of course, in our walk with God, and if we're actually honest with ourselves, we can stray and go pretty wayward, not too hard. That's true for any of us. But I do want you to know this, I'm not portraying sheep as kind of victims. Like the next point. Just go to the next point quick for me. Thanks, Tanya. This is a psalm about total trust, total reliance, total provision. Now, in our current world today, if you think about that politically, it's like, oh, you're in the victim class. No. Push that out. Total trust in our shepherd. Total reliance on Christ. Total provision from God's hand. This is not to make us victims. It's to make us the most grateful, appreciative, empowered people who can proclaim the voice of our shepherd to others, that others might know that there is a voice longing to speak into our heart, to bless us, to gather us together, and to lead us. I find this the case. I love good leadership. Man, do I want to follow. I love to follow good leadership. Somebody who's transparent, honest, has integrity, has some smarts about him. I'll go anywhere. I'll go anywhere. You lead like that. You lie to me, I got a problem. You don't have integrity, I got a problem. You're in this for yourself, I got a problem. And I think guys need that too and want that. I do. And so anyway, and ladies, please, I'm not trying to shut you out. I just think guys can sometimes zone out if we think, oh, you think I'm a sheep. I'm no sheep. I want to be this kind of sheep. This kind. So here's the thing. It's a song, go back. It's a song of complete grace. There was C.S. Lewis, this is a C.S. Lewis story. There was a big debate they were having among the Christian theology teachers in Cambridge University over in England. And they're having this great big debate about what is unique about Christianity. And it was a really, really kind of an interesting debate because they were talking about, well, it's that God became a human being, he became a man, or it was about the atonement, Jesus substituted himself for us, or it was a single sacrifice instead of an ongoing sacrificial system, or it was about the resurrection. And Lewis walks into the room. He walks in his tweed jacket, he's got his pipe and papers, and he was a little early for the presentation, and he took in the conversation, which was now a fierce debate. And during a soft spot, a lull, he spoke and he said, well, what's all this rumpus about? Everyone turned towards C.S. Lewis and said, Well, we're debating what's unique about Christianity. Oh, that's easy, said C.S. Lewis. It's grace. This is true. I don't quote C.S. Lewis as if he's the Bible. That is a true thing. Every other religion in the world is about what you do. And that's why the illustration of sheep and shepherd is so good. Tell me what the sheep are doing for the shepherd. Right? I mean, and look at how David lays it out. The Lord is my shepherd. Oh, you can go to number 2. Thanks, Tanya. I'm sorry, I'm just goofing you up here and there. Look about it, how it's grace. Come on, you'll be theologians with me here for a minute. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, right? I got lost somehow. I will fear no evil, for you're with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. That's about binding up wounds. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Anything in there you're doing? Other than wandering off. Right? It's all grace. It's all grace. So what makes this so powerful? Because the good news of being in the zone, we're in the zone when we're in the presence of Jesus. This whole thing is about David saying, as sheep, I am in the presence of my good shepherd. When I am in the presence of my good shepherd, I'm in the zone. Total trust, total reliance, total provision. You know what's funny about sheep? They will not lie down. They refuse to lie down. I got this out of a book called A Shepherd Looks at Psalm 23. Some of you probably own it. It's a good one. A sheep will not lie down unless it feels completely safe. It simply will not lie down. It's too vulnerable. They can actually roll over onto their backs and die because they can't get themselves upright. I mean, they will nose themselves. They'll just eat without thinking. They'll eat themselves to death. I mean, they will just bloat themselves and they'll eat to death. They need a shepherd to stop them and move them and actually force them to move so that they'll go to another spot. They will denude, they will just destroy an area. They sometimes have been called 4-footed locusts, just to destroy the vegetation. They just have to be moved from pasture to pasture to pasture to pasture, or they'll die. They just die. They will be going along foraging and get stuck so hard into the brambles and the weeds and stuff they can't get themselves out. They will not drink water if it's moving. So there are stories of shepherds that have to go like by a stream and it's the only source of water, and they actually have to kind of form a little dam or divert it into a pool so that they will actually drink the still water, right? He leads me to still water. It's a fascinating thing. And David knows this stuff, right? He's a pro. He was a professional. And so, and he's the one that leads us. Think about it. When you watch sheep, do they look like deer very often? So often deer have their heads up and they're looking around. Sheep ain't doing that. They're down here, man. They're just eating away. Like lawnmowers. Off they go. And thank God they got a shepherd who stands above them and say, we're going that way. The other powerful thing about this, the thing that I think is so good, because this is not so much about us being so bad and wayward. Here's the good news about being a sheep. Out of all the domesticated animals, you could argue about dogs, about knowing the voice of their owner, right, of their shepherd. Cats don't count because they don't pay attention to anything. I told Teresa, why did we name the cat? But I like cats. Like is strong. Yeah, sorry. They can know the voice of their shepherd. Have you seen those videos? This is a bummer. I can't use YouTube stuff anymore. They shut us down on the stream. Because I used to show you videos all the time, Okay, anyway. But there'll be these videos of flocks of sheep and goats, like in the Middle East, coming together and converging, and these hundreds of animals. And it's like, how are you going to sort this out? And when you listen to it, each of the shepherds has like a song. They're singing or they're calling them by name. And those animals, those sheep, they know the voice of their shepherd. And they just sort together, and as they emerge the other side, off they go. So this is the great quality of the sheep, and why I believe God loves to use this as the illustration, why Jesus uses it. In the gospel, he says to the Pharisees, you don't know my voice, you don't listen to me. You don't listen to me, therefore you are not my sheep. I got sheep, they know my voice. They listen to me. I want to know the voice of my shepherd, just like I knew the voice of my mom. That was a very terrifying and comforting thing in my life. Right? I mean, it was, I could always hear her voice. I immediately knew just exactly when and where I needed to go and to be, and what was going to happen to me also at the time. So what we're getting here is the great blessing of being a sheep is being able to discern the voice of a shepherd, of our good shepherd, amidst all the other cacophony of noise around us. And moms, this is your unique gift too. Dads, some dads have it too. But moms can tell when their kid is hurting and when they hear him, and it's right now, off they go. Your shepherd is that way too. It's not just a talent of the sheep. It's a talent of the shepherd to know the voice of their sheep. Okay, now I've got just a little bit more here, but I want to talk about David. Let's go to that last point, Tanya. I wanted to try to make this a little more real for you. And I did a little study on this with David, because David writes this psalm, and I go, what's his insight into this? And there are 3 times, especially, you could say a fourth, but there's 3 times at least, where David clearly is using his experience as being a shepherd boy, but also being the king of Israel, because the leaders of Israel were called to be shepherds. And in Ezekiel, it tells us about how they blew it so badly. The religious and moral and political leaders of the country blew it. And God said, these bad shepherds, I'm getting rid of them. I myself will lead my people. That's the one that points us to Christ, the good shepherd, right? So David's a young boy. We know 3 scenes. You know David and Goliath. You've been to Vacation Bible School or Sunday School or whatever. David and Goliath. And so they're enemies. The Philistines are there, and there's 2 big battle lines. And the Philistines have this big dude, 9 foot tall. He's got a spear nobody else can carry, and he mocks the Israelites, says, one-on-one combat, I win, we beat you, you beat me, you guys win. There you go, you got the story, and like that. David is bringing lunch to his brothers. They're in the army. And he brings it, and he goes, what's going on? And they go, well, Goliath is out there, and he's taunting us because none of us are big enough or strong enough to go up against him. And he essentially goes this way. This is David's words. Essentially, he says, what is the big deal? Isn't God ours? Isn't God on our side? This godless heathen over here? What's the problem? And so when he goes to the king, he goes, I'll do it. And you know what? And so how does it go? Here you've got some. Your servant's been keeping his father's sheep, and the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. Think about how he's thinking about this. If I could be a shepherd and take care of this, my parents' flock, this little flock, how much more does God care for his people? If I have a word for you on this too, it's that one of the great things is that we are called to be in the flock. Sheep wandering out there by themselves, they're just hors d'oeuvres. I don't want to be no hors d'oeuvre. I want to be part of the flock, led by a shepherd who loves us so dearly. And so David understands this. If I could care for that little flock, how much more doesn't God care for the great flock? So that's the first thing that he does, and God gives him the victory. I mean, he has the thing and defeats his enemy, and it's a tremendous win. David then is anointed by Samuel, and he's anointed to be the next king, the next shepherd of God's people. Now, here's what's interesting. But David's predecessor, King Saul, doesn't like this. He's not happy about it. David wants his son Jonathan to get it. He wants him to, and Jonathan and David are best buds. And so he begins to pursue David and try to hunt him down and kill him. So he's got his whole army chasing David all over Israel, all over Palestine. And David's got a few hundred men of his own, and he's on the run all the time. Now just think about this for a minute. He is on the run, fearful for his life all the time. And so we get Psalms like this. Go to the next one. Tanya, do we have this? In Psalm 69, I love this. Do not hide your face from your servant. Answer me quickly, for I am in trouble. This is David. The king's after me, and he's your anointed. You anointed him before me. I don't want to kill him. I don't want to rebel. It's not about that. I'm trying to follow your will, and I don't know where I'm going, and I'm under attack. And he goes on, come near and rescue me. Redeem me because of my foes. Psalm 22 that we know very familiarly because Jesus says it from the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? That's David again. Why are you so far from the words of my groaning? Why is there no one to help me? These are in the time when, like a lost and wandering sheep, David is on the run from the one who is supposed to be the good shepherd for the people of Israel. And so David is constantly calling out for rescue and longing to be restored. So secondly, David understands that he remains one of God's sheep, and he does not know where to go unless he is following the voice of his shepherd. But then there's one more scene, and this is the most poignant one to me. David eventually does become king, and he is securing the country. And the enemies are being defeated, and David decides not to go to war and stay home. And he sees a very beautiful woman, not his wife, and he possesses her. He breaks his vows. She becomes pregnant, and now he's worried. And he machinates to see if he can deceive her husband, who's in his army. He's such a godly man, faithful, moral man, that he won't do what David asks him to do. And finally, David machinates to have him killed in battle. And then David thinks he's fine. He thinks he's home free. And God, of course, sends a prophet to him and tells him a horror story from his own kingdom, and it's about sheep. He says, one of your subjects has thousands of sheep. He's so wealthy. And he has a neighbor who had one little ewe lamb, and he loved that lamb so much. It was part of his family. He brought it into his home. And he said the rich guy had a visitor come by, and he didn't take one of his own flock. He said, "Go get that guy's lamb. We're going to have that for dinner." And David is incensed. He is so angry. And he says, we got to find that guy because such injustice can't endure in Israel. We're going to pay him back 4 times what happened. And Nathan just says, you're the guy. You did that. And David is stricken. Because you know why? Here's why. Because he knows what it means to be a shepherd, and he blew it. His job was to take care of the one ewe lamb. Because even one ewe lamb is precious to the shepherd. That's who you are too. Precious to the shepherd. And so David writes this psalm. Now do you see the psalm? The one who went and defeated Goliath because he knew that God would take care of his sheep. The one who cries out to God when he's lost and wandering, when one of God's who should be a good shepherd is pursuing him. Lord, where will I go, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death? That's a real place in Israel, by the way, the valley of the shadow. And the one who abdicated his own responsibility, but God did not abandon him. And David became the model for the people of Israel, a man after God's own heart. Not perfect, so far from perfect, but redeemed, restored, forgiven. And so we rejoice. David knew the value of one sheep. So does Jesus. Exactly what Jesus does. We are the treasured ones of God. And you know the true home, when he says in this, I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever, don't think mansion or palace. Dwelling in the house of the Lord is wherever Jesus has set up shop. Whenever we're with the shepherd, that's in the zone of God's grace, his love, and mercy. Surely goodness, mercy, and love will be yours forever. Amen.